I didn't end up doing a first impressions on Season 21 video as I usually do, because the first few days of the season weren't really that eventful, and it was just shaping up to be truly another season in a list of seasons. But now that we're 3 weeks in, and Deep Dive has been getting more and more unlocked, I want to talk a little bit about this activity. Originally, without the reveal of the built-in hard mode, my first couple of runs of this place were quite uneventful, and I just thought it was another sort of whatever type secondary seasonal activity. But now that knowledge of this hard mode activator has been getting more attention and more difficulty tiers are opening up, Deep Dive is revealing itself to be a pretty solid foundation for something that Bungie could expand on in the future. If you're not in the loop, Deep Dive has a normal mode and a hard mode, but the hard mode requires everyone on the team to activate before it will start, and we'll talk about the implications of that later. And the hard mode adds another objective at the end of a normal mode, usually with stronger or more healthy enemies. Doing these bonus objectives unlocks a higher tier reward at the end of the activity, and while it is possible to get complete garbage out of these chests, it's also possible to get stuff like red borders or even exotics. To activate the hard mode, you find this glowing ball. You're going to hear people call it Toland, which is a reference to the character Toland from the Forsaken days. And then you just use your activate button on it, whatever it is. Once everyone does that, an additional objective is going to activate where you need to kill taken blights in the sky or on the ground or stand in some pools, something along those lines. And you'll know when it's active when the darkness invoked message appears on the screen. You need to do this in every stage. It's not just a one-time activation at the start, and the location of Toland changes every time, although he can only spawn in a certain number of places. Deep Dive is setting the foundation for Bungie to mess around with a roguelite type mode for Destiny. A roguelike or a roguelite game are games like Returnal, Hades, Slay the Spire, Risk of Rain, Binding of Isaac, games where you start with nothing and are trying to clear either as many levels as possible or a certain amount of levels as fast as possible. And then as you play the game, you get more and more upgrades to your character to help you move into the more difficult stages until you hit either the end of the game or you die or, whatever the ending is. Deep Dive is kind of setting the foundation for a roguelite experience within Destiny via their buff system. At the start of each stage, you're presented with 2 buff options that are completely random each time, so you might get stuff that's amazing for your build, or maybe it might be complete trash. Then you complete a stage, you get another buff, you continue on. This is basically the most bare bones form of the genre. You beat a level, you get an upgrade. But I do think it works, and I think it could work for Destiny going into the future. Future Destiny is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, because besides the LFG system that we already know is coming, I feel like Destiny is starting to cap out on what they could launch as a new feature. We have Triumph system, titles, collections, transmog, loadouts, refined mod systems, subclasses revamped. Eventually, I feel like they're gonna run out of community requested features, and eventually I think they're gonna turn to alternate game modes, or at the least consider them. A horde mode is something that's been requested quite frequently, and Deep Dive, while not exactly a true horde mode, is still maybe trying to showcase a potential new mode, a proof of concept, if you will. Now, reward-wise, there's only so much you can do with something like Deep Dive in its current state. Exotics are cool, red borders are cool, but eventually the shine's gonna wear off. For a seasonal activity, that's fine. But for a fully dedicated mode, you're gonna need a lot more than that, I feel like. I've been asking for leaderboards for PvE for 9 years now, but that's something you could also do. I've been hoping for some sort of equivalent to trials for PvE, some sort of competitive PvE thing. And this could be something that has a competitive side to it. It doesn't have to be completely competitive, though, but the goal is the same either way. Get the farthest, or go the fastest, or whatever the goal might be. Loot could scale up to GM or Trials quality based on how far you get. You could scale enemies up from basically minimum level up to GM level and beyond. there's a lot you could do. I'm not here to completely design a new game mode right now. I'm just here to say that Deep Dive is cool. It's a good foundation, and I hope Bungie does something with it in the future, because I think there's just a good amount of potential there. Deep Dive has not been without its drama, though, with the biggest complaint being about the activation of the hard mode, requiring all 3 people as opposed to just 1 person. On the one hand, requiring all 3 people maybe doesn't ensure, but more than likely ensures that people are at least on the same page with what they were about to do. Everyone in the team knows that the hard mode is being activated. Everyone knows what's up, but if you're not set up for it, the hard mode can actually be a little bit hard. I would say especially the second stage where people need to spread out. I've seen complaints about people not knowing how to do the plate mechanic in salvage, or being able to even figure it out. Do you really expect a random player in your game to be able to handle the tons of waves of enemies that spawn as a result of the hard mode? I personally don't. You'd need to hard carry your randoms to success, and that is not the easiest thing to do. Also, completely blindsiding people into a hard mode activation when they aren't expecting it can potentially lead them to being disinterested in running that activity in the future if they feel like they can't handle the activity or what they think maybe the base mode of the activity is. On the other hand, this does make trying to do some of the triumphs and the challenges for the season a bit more difficult for solo players. If you could activate it by yourself and there's not that much of a penalty for failing, what's the big deal if people can activate the hard mode by themselves? Well, there is a penalty for failing. If you fail on the second or third stage, you get booted straight to the end of the mission. You just do the boss fight and that's it. I think something that I could probably get behind is another matchmaking tier that just has the hard mode automatically enabled for those looking for that extra challenge instead of requiring the activation. Now, I do think the activation of the hard mode is part of the hard mode experience because it takes time to actually do it, and the clock is what matters. So if there were split playlists, then I'd personally want to see the actual hard mode activation process still in there. But also, what is to stop people who don't know what they're doing from joining the hard mode version of the playlist? It's a similar situation to the request of raid matchmaking. Obviously not on as big of a scale, but still. You have someone who doesn't know what the hard mode requires, doesn't have a good setup, and you potentially fail because that person just doesn't know what's going on. Do I think that would be the norm? No, but do I think it would happen more often than people think? Yes, I do. You would need to have a barrier to entry to enter this playlist, and if that were the case, if the barrier was something like show expertise with the hard mode to enter this playlist, that'd probably be fine. Like complete 10 pressure trial stages before you can enter the playlist. Something like that, I think would be potentially okay. So yeah, Deep Dive. I enjoy it. I think the hard mode activator is awesome. I love the concept of a roguelite experience within Destiny. I think there's a lot of potential there. And I just wanted to say that I think it's neat. That's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.